Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Babel on Talmud. Today we are learning Daf Nun Gimel of Masechta Shabbis. Let's do an overview of the daf before we begin. So we are continuing on the parak of Bameh Behema Yotza. We are going to begin with a new Mishnah, and this is discussing donkeys and sheep and things like that. Can they go out to Rosh Hashanah carrying all sorts of stuff? So we're going to talk about donkeys carrying pillows, to which we're going to get into all sorts of questions about these pillows that they put under the saddles. At one point we're going to get into amulets, healing on Shabbis, all sorts of stuff. Some interesting stories towards the end. So again, I feel like we've been having a lot of these dafs recently where there aren't like real sugyas, we're going to get into this sugya. It's all just kind of like random stuff. So let's jump into random stuff together. So Nun Beis, Amud Beis, towards the bottom of the page at the Mishnah. Chamer Yotza, so it's about 4 lines. It's 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Chamer Yotze b'mardas b'zman sheikshura bo. So a donkey you're allowed. Your donkey is allowed to go out to Rosh Hashanah with a mardas. Now, a mardas, the way my understanding is that on a donkey they would put some kind of pillow on the donkey, and then they would put the saddle on top of the pillow. Okay, and that pillow served a function also in that. Well, I think that the main purpose of that pillow is that it would keep the donkey warm. Okay, it would keep it warm so that it wouldn't be cold. So a donkey is allowed to go out into Rosh Hashanah with this pillow tied onto it, as long as it is just that, as long as that the pillow is in fact tied onto it. Zacharim yotzin lebuvin. Rams may go out levuvin. We will discuss what that means in the Gemara. Rechelos yotzos shchuzos kvulos uchvunos. Female sheep are able to go out shchuzos, kvulos, and kvunos. We will talk about shchuzos today. I think kvulos and kvunos we talk about tomorrow. Ha'izim yotzos tzruros. Goats can go with these bags kind of tied to their udders. We will get to that also, although Rashi offers 2 explanations why you'd want to do that. One would be to dry out the udders so that the udders will not produce milk. That could be for one of 2 reasons. One is so that if it doesn't produce milk, it will be able to have children. The other one is if it's not producing milk, then it will get meatier and better tasting for when you eat it. And then the other option would be that if you want to make sure that any milk that drips out of the udders you don't lose it doesn't fall on the floor. So you would tie some kind of bag in there to catch the milk. Rabbi Yossi Oser B'chulan. Rabbi Yossi says that all of these things are not allowed. Right? Donkeys with pillows, all that stuff is not allowed. Chutz benar chilin akvunos. The only thing that would be permitted is these female sheep that are kivunos, which we haven't yet defined. Rabbi Yehuda Omer izim yotzos tzruros liabei shavalil chalev. Rabbi Yehuda says that there's actually a distinction when it comes to these goats and these bags that they would put under the udders. That if it was in order to dry out the udders so that they wouldn't produce milk, well then it was permitted because then they would tie the bags tighter and they wouldn't fall off, as opposed to when they are for milk, so then they were not tied on as tightly and they could fall off, and then the owner of the goat may end up carrying that bag thing, and that would be a problem. Let's check out the Gemara, guys. Amar Shmuel hat gesagt, v'hu shekshur lo me'erev Shabbos. So when we say that a donkey is permitted to go out with this pillow tied to it, it means that the pillow is tied to it already from before Shabbos, not on Shabbos. Amar Rav Nachman. So it says Rav Nachman, masnisin nami deka, and you can actually also imply this from Mishnayos, that Dikatani, we have a Mishnah on Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis, and a chamer yotza b'mardas b'zman she'ena kshur lo. So the Mishnah is going to say on Nun Daled Amud Beis that if a donkey has this pillow on it, but the pillow is not tied, so then the donkey would not be allowed to go out with it. So nahechidami. What does this mean that it's not tied? If you want to say, it means that this pillow thing isn't tied to the donkey at all, well then pshita, obviously then it can't go out to Rishus Harabim. Because, we're going to have to be concerned that maybe this pillow is going to fall off of the donkey and the owner will end up carrying it. So there's no question that if this pillow thing is not tied to the donkey, then it can't go out. So Ella Lav She'ena Kshura Me'erev Shabbos. No, what it means is that even if this pillow is in fact tied to the donkey, but it wasn't tied from before Shabbos, that is what the Mishnah is saying, that you would not be able to take out that donkey to Rishus Harabim, right? So when we say basically in the next Mishnah that when a donkey's pillow is not tied to it, so then you wouldn't be able to go out to Rishus Harabim, it means that it's not tied from before Shabbos. Well then, Michlal Dereisha, which means that in our Mishnah, which would be the Reisha, which would be the first Mishnah, so when it says that when the pillow is tied to the donkey, it may go out to Rishus Harabim, well, that is also talking about Erev Shabbos, i.e., that it's been tied to the donkey from before Shabbos, right? So Mechal Dereisha Shekshur Lo Me'erev Shabbos, that this pillow thing has been tied to it already from before Shabbos. Shma Mina. Good proof. Tanin Amilachi, we also talk learn out in a brisa explicitly like this. Chomer Yotzi B'madas, a donkey is permitted to go out to Rishus Harabim on Shabbos with its pillow, Bizman Shekshur Lo Me'erev Shabbos, as long as it has been tied to it from before Shabbos. V'lo be'ukaf, and then the brisa continues and says, however, the saddle that goes on top of the pillow would not be allowed afal pi shekshur lo me'erev Shabbos, even though it's tied to it from Erev Shabbos. And mistama, the assumption being because the saddle is more associated with like riding and burdens and stuff like that, and carrying stuff. However, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer says, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, af be'ukaf. The donkey can even go out with the saddle attached to it. Bizman shekshur lo me'erev Shabbos, as long as the saddle has been tied to it from before Shabbos, and his assumption being that, well, the saddle also provides warmth, and therefore it would be allowed. This is interesting. So, I don't know much about donkey saddles. Maybe someone here does. So, in any event, apparently, when you would tie a saddle to a donkey, like if you have a donkey that is carrying a big load, such as I think is normal for donkeys, I think they have a reputation of being able to carry big loads. So you would tie additional straps like under its like chest, okay, as well as behind it as well. The point being that the straps that are under its chest, if it's going uphill, so those straps will sort of prevent it from slipping off behind it, right? Behind it. And if it's going downhill, so then the straps that are tied behind it will prevent it from the load from like sliding down to the donkey's neck. Okay? So don't tie those things because that would be sort of burdeny. But simply just having a saddle tied to the donkey would be acceptable because why would it be acceptable? Because it's for like warmth, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Weiter. Ba minei Rav Asi bar Nasin mir Pchia bar Ashi. Okay. So up until now, we have been talking about a donkey going out to Rishus Harabim with this saddle or with the pillow that's been tied already from before Shabbos. What about if we're not talking about Hotzah? What if we're not talking about going out from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus Harabim? What if we're talking about, can I simply put a pillow on my donkey on Shabbos in my Rishus HaYachid, in my Chatzar? It's not going anywhere, but my donkey's cold. I want to put the pillow on it to warm up my donkey so it won't be cold. That's the kasha. So Bamini Rav Asi bar Nasin mi Rav Chia bar Ashi. So Rav Asi bar Nasin asked Rav Chia bar Ashi, Ma'u liten my das al gabe chomer b'Shabbos. Can I simply just put a pillow on to my donkey on Shabbos simply to warm it up? Okay, I know that I won't be able to then go out to Rishus Harabim. I'm not concerned about that. I just want to know, can I warm up my donkey? It's cold. I want to warm it up by putting a pillow on it. Amr le mutter. Rav Chia bar Ashi says it's allowed. It's allowed. Amr le. To which Rav Asi bar Nasin says, "V'chima ben zo leukaf." But I don't get it. Rav, I keep on forgetting this guy's name. Rav Asi Bar Nassan. Maybe if I say it 5 times. Rav Asi Bar Nassan, Rav Asi Bar Nassan, Rav Asi Bar Nassan, Rav Asi Bar Nassan, Rav Asi Bar Nassan. Maybe I'll remember it now. So, Rav Asi Bar Nassan, he asks Rav Chia Bar Ashi, he says, but one second, why should the pillow be any different than putting a saddle on the donkey on Shabbos? Ishtik. And Rav Chia Bar Ashi was quiet. So now the Gemara, so the assumption being, I guess both in the Gemara and according to, Rav Asi, Rav Ami, Rav Asi Bar Nassan. Oh gosh, I guess the 5 times thing didn't work so good. Rav Asi Bar Nassan, in any event. So, but one second, what should the difference be between the Mardas and the Ukaf? Right, exactly. And Rav Chia Bar Ashi was quiet, implying that he says that there would be no difference, i.e. that the saddle would also be allowed. You'd be allowed to put a saddle on your donkey on Shabbos. Now, Esvei. But then Rav Asi Bar Nassan asks a kasha on Rav Ashi. I don't get you, Rav Ashi, because we say, Ukaf sha'agabe chamer lo yital telena biyado. That if you have a saddle, and this saddle is on the donkey, you would not be allowed to take this saddle off of the donkey. You wouldn't be allowed to move it in order to take it off of the donkey. Rather, how do you remove a saddle from a donkey on Shabbos, says this Brisa? You just have it walk around the chatzar, the courtyard, and the saddle will fall off. It'll fall off on its own. But don't move it. Hashta litol amar lo laniach mibaya. Now, if to move this saddle to take it off of the donkey, we're saying don't do it, well then certainly you won't be able to put the saddle onto the donkey, which sounds like, maybe you're gonna go, which looks like maybe you're going to, go take it somewhere or put loads on it and things like that. So if you can't remove the saddle from the donkey, certainly you can't put a saddle on the donkey. So basically we have a brisa saying that you can't put a saddle onto the donkey. So now, Rav Chia Bar Ashi, why are you saying that you can put a saddle onto the donkey? And also, this being the case, that we have a brisa saying that you can't put a saddle onto a donkey, so then why would I assume that you can put a pillow onto the donkey? So this is this dialogue between Rav Asi Bar Nassan, maybe it did work, and Rav Chia Bar Ashi, okay? That Rav Chia Bar Ashi seems to be saying that you would be allowed to put both a pillow and a saddle onto your donkey on Shabbos, ostensibly to warm it up, where Rav Asi Bar Nassan is a little bit confused, because all he knows for sure is that there's a brisa that says that you can't put a saddle on the donkey. And as far as of Nassan Bar Asi, Rav Asi Bar Nassan is concerned, well then, if you can't put the saddle, then why should you be able to put, why should a pillow be any different? So I'm going to Reb Zer. So Reb Zer says to Rav Asi Bar Nassan, Shavke, leave Rav Chia Bar Ashi alone. Kirabe Sfirle. He holds like his Rebbe, Rav, so leave him alone. Dam Rav Chia Bar Ashi Amar Rav, because Rav Chia Bar Ashi said the name of Rav, Tolin Traskel Levema B'Shabbos, that you would be allowed to hang a traskel from the neck of an animal on Shabbos. What's a traskel? Traskel sounds like, dream come true for an animal. Imagine you're a donkey, and all you like to do is eat donkey food. And somebody's willing to hang from your neck this container full of donkey food. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to move. You can just eat and eat and eat and eat. Does it get better than that, huh? So that's what this traskel is. So now, Rav says that you're allowed to, on Shabbos, hang this container full of food on the neck of the animal. Now, the chiddush being that this is simply a benefit. It's a tanug. It's an enjoyable thing. Meaning, so we have 2 items here that we're comparing. One of them is putting a pillow, let's say, on a donkey, right? Now, that is because the donkey is actually uncomfortable right now. It's cold. It's uncomfortable. And we want to put a pillow on the donkey to alleviate its discomfort. Now, we just said that according to Rav, you would even be able to hang this traskal on the neck of the animal. Now, this isn't to alleviate pain. This is simply something that's extremely enjoyable for the animal. So now the Gemara says, "V'kal v'chomer l'mardas." Now you can make a logical, extension now to this pillow. Uma hasam de mishum tainug shari. If, when it comes to the traskal, where it's simply an enjoyable thing that you can hang this, all this, unlimited food for this animal, and Rav would say that that's permitted. Here, where, you want to put on this pillow to alleviate discomfort, certainly that should, be allowed. Sort of to go above and beyond, it's permitted. Well, then certainly the baseline of alleviating discomfort would be allowed, and therefore you should be able to put on that pillow. And I think that once we've, therefore, Rav Chia bar Ashi, at least when it comes to the mardas, at least when it comes to the pillow, we're going to say that he's in line with his Rebbe Rav, that you would be allowed to put a pillow on this donkey for warmth. And I think that the point being that when he was quiet regarding the saddle as well, implying that he would, agree that by a saddle you'd be able to put it on as well, I assume that it would also be because it's considered part of the warmth. It's providing warmth as well. Okay, fine. Now Shmuel Amar Mardas Mutter. Now Shmuel says that you would be permitted to put a pillow onto a donkey to provide warmth. I don't know what he would say about a saddle. I'm assuming that he would say that a saddle is not allowed. Traskal Aser. Now, dangling this this food container from the neck of the animal would be also because it's just ta'anug be'alma. It's not alleviating discomfort. Okay. Also, Reb Chia bar Yosef, l'shmaita derav kami d'shmuel. Now, Reb Chia bar Yosef went and he said this teaching of Rav, this halacha of Rav in front of Shmuel. What's the halacha of Rav? That you'd be allowed to hang this traskal from the neck of an animal on Shabbos. Now listen to this answer of Shmuel. Amar le, and Shmuel says to Reb Chia bar Yosef, I hachi Amar Abba. If Abba, who's Abba? We had Abba already, at least in Masechta Brachos. I don't know if we had it since then as well, but Shmuel would call Rav Abba. So if Abba really said this, that you're allowed to hang a traskal from the neck of an animal on Shabbos, lo yada b'mili de Shabbata v'lo klub. He does not know anything about Hilchos Shabbos. Wow, Shmuel. Okay. Oof. Anyways, that's machlokas between Rav and Shmuel regarding hanging a traskal from the neck of an animal on Shabbos. Rav says yes, Shmuel says no. Kisalik Reb Zera, when Reb Zera made Aliyah from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechel Rab Binyamin bar Yefes, so he found the holy Rab Binyamin bar Yefes, the Yosef v'Ka'amar le Mishmed Rab Yochanan, that he was saying in the name of Rab Yochanan, Nosnen Mardas al Gabi Chomer b'Shabbos, you are permitted to put this pillow on top of a donkey on Shabbos. Amar le, Yiyashiv v'chein tigma Aryoch b'Bavel. So, Reb Zera says Yashakayach, and similarly, Aryoch explained in Bavel, and Rashi says the Gemara actually is about to say that Aryoch is Shmuel. Okay, so basically Abba was Rav and Aryoch was Shmuel, and Rashi explains that Aryoch is like a king in Aramaic or something, and Rashi says in Dibur Maschil Abba, so he says. After the two dots in there, Shmuel Kari Aryoch, Shmuel is called Aryoch, al Shem Shaya Baki B'Dinin, because he was an expert when it came to dinim, to like dinim amanos, like monetary things, monetary law. V'Shofet, and he was a judge, Kimelech HaShofet Ala Aretz, like a king who rules and judges the land. So, anyways, Rabbi Binyamin bar Yefes said that you're allowed to put a pillow on a donkey on Shabbos in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, and to which Rabbi Zera responded, Yashar Kayach. Shmuel says like that as well. Aryoch Manu Shmuel. Who is Aryoch? Aryoch is Shmuel. V'Rav Nami Amra. Why did Rabbi Zera specifically say that Shmuel said that you're allowed to put a pillow on a donkey on Shabbos? Didn't Rav say the same thing? So Ella Shamidav Messiah Bey, that Reb Zera heard Reb Nam Bar Yefes then conclude Ve'in Tolin Traskal b'Shabbos, and we do not hang a traskal from the neck of the animal on Shabbos. To which Amar Le, Reb Zera said to him, Yasher v'chein tigma arich b'Bavel, Yasher Kayach. Similarly, Shmuel says that way in Bavel. So this next part of the Gemara is like a little weird. It's only a few lines, but I think it seems like we're comparing putting on a pillow on a donkey to removing a saddle from a donkey. Like, I feel like it would make more sense to compare putting on a pillow to a donkey to putting on a saddle to a donkey, but we seem to be comparing the fact that everyone seems to agree that you're allowed to put a pillow onto a donkey, yet we had that brisa earlier which says that you're not allowed to remove a saddle from a donkey. Okay? Both Rav and Shmuel seem to agree, however, when it comes to a pillow, that you would be permitted to place a pillow on a donkey because it provides warmth. Mashnami ukaf. Why should putting a pillow on a donkey be any different than removing a saddle from a donkey? All right. Shani Hasam, it's different when it comes to a saddle to Efshar Denafim Mamela because it can just fall off on its own. So why should it be allowed to take off the saddle from the donkey if it could just fall off on its own? So just let it fall off. Okay. Whereas when it comes to the pillow, you're actually providing warmth, and that's why it's allowed. Rav Papa Amar said, Rav Papa kan l'chamema kan l'tzanana. That the difference between the pillow and the saddle is that the pillow is to provide warmth, whereas removing a saddle is only to cool it down. Okay? Why would you want to remove the saddle from the donkey? Well, because it was carrying a whole bunch of stuff. The donkey's hot, and you want to remove all the stuff it was carrying and also remove the saddle so that it can cool down. Right? So the pillow is in order to heat it up, whereas the removing the saddle is to cool it down. So now, l'chamema isleit saira. Now, in terms of to provide warmth to the donkey, well, that makes sense because the donkey is uncomfortable. You want to put on the pillow to provide warmth. Whereas litzanana leis leit saira. But to cool it down, it is not uncomfortable, and therefore you would not be allowed to remove the saddle. How come? That this is just like the people say that a donkey, even b'tkufas tammuz, even in the middle of the summer, it's still cool, right? The point being that donkeys apparently generally are able to maintain a cool body temperature, and therefore even if the donkey comes back, and therefore even if the donkey was carrying a whole bunch of stuff and now it's really hot, it'll cool down on its own. Sure, it might take a little bit of time, but it'll cool down on its own. And therefore, you would not be allowed to take off the saddle so that it can cool down because it will cool down anyways. But if it's uncomfortable because it's cold, well then you would be allowed to add a pillow because it's not going to heat up on its own. Meisvei, we have a kasha against Shmuel. Okay? Rav said that you would be allowed to hang this traskal from the neck of an animal on Shabbos so that it can enjoy unlimited quantities of food. Well, or at least until the food in the traskal runs out. But then I guess you can always refill it. Meitzvei, we have a contradiction. We're about to list a whole bunch of things. One of those bunch of things are going to be relevant for what we need. Lo yetze asus beznav shual. A horse should not go out with like the tail of a fox between its eyes, I think, to prevent like ayin haras. Okay. Yeah, okay. V'lo b'zuhuris shebein einav. And the horse should not go out with a like red string between its eyes. I think that was for like good luck or something like that. Oh no, it makes it look very, very beautiful. Lo yetze azav b'kis shelo. You guys remember the zav in his baggie? Right? The zav doesn't go out on Shabbos with his baggie to make sure that ziva doesn't, to see, so that he could check the baggie to see if there's any ziva in there, see if he is tamei. And goats should not go out with a baggie on their udders, as we described in the Mishnah. Maybe because it's to dry the udders, maybe it's because to catch the milk. A cow should not go out with the muzzle in its mouth so that it doesn't eat from other people's grass. Ding, 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 ding. That's the key phrase that we care about, which we'll get back to when we ask our question, but that's the key phrase. Colts, right? Little child horses should not go out with these traskalim for them to eat. Okay? To Rishus Harabim. An animal should not go out with shoes on its feet. Now, this does not include horseshoes that are nailed into their feet. This is, I guess, other kinds of shoes that can fall off, and then the owner might pick them up. Animals should not go out with an amulet, even though this amulet has been proved to work 3 times. Doesn't matter. You still cannot go out with this very fancy healing amulet. And this is a stringency by animals above and beyond the stringencies of people. We'll get to that as well. Did I skip? No, but that's okay because I didn't actually really skip. Aval, however, Yotze hu be'eged shalabe maka. If the animal has some kind of a bandage on a wound that is like tied to the wound, so then the animal would be allowed to go out with this bandage because it's not going to fall off. If the animal like broke a leg or something and it has a splint, so it can go out with this splint. Okay, if I guess it gave birth and now there is a placenta that is hanging out of it, so it can go out with that as well. And if it has some kind of a bell around its neck, you can, put some like wool and things in there to prevent the bell from like banging and making noise, and then it can walk around your courtyard with that bell. Okay, that's the brisa. Who could tell me everything by heart? Who could tell me everything that we just said by heart? Not me. Katane mias. No, what's the important part? We said that colts should not go out with this, feeding thing dangling from their necks to Rishus Harabim. The Rishus Harabim u'deloa b'chatzor shaper dami. So it sounds to me like we're saying that you can't go out to Rishus Harabim with this traskal, but within your own courtyard, you would be able to apply this traskal to the neck of an animal, like Rav is saying. Shmuel says that you would not, but Rav says that you can tie this traskal to the neck of an animal. So doesn't it sound like the Brisa would agree with us? As long as you're not going out to Rishus Harabim with it, it should be fine. My love, big dolim, umishum tainug. We're talking about big colts, right? Colts that are no longer babies. And therefore, because what's the whole point? Well, not the whole point, but if you have a colt, basically, my understanding from learning this Gemara is that a colt, a horse, when it's born, so its legs are very tall, yet its neck isn't like necessarily super long yet. And therefore, it's very difficult for the baby horse to extend his neck to the ground to eat grass and stuff. Therefore, you would create this feeding thing that you would tie to its neck, and it doesn't have to bend down to eat grass. You're basically bringing the food to it. So, however, the Gemara wants to assume right now that this is not what we're talking about. The Gemara wants to assume that it's even talking about a bigger colt, right? A colt that's already probably close to no longer being considered a colt, right? And therefore its neck is already long. And it's not difficult for it to eat from the ground. And yet we're saying you're still allowed to tie this traskal to its neck just so that it can have the enjoyment of having food right in front of its face all the time. And we seem to be saying that it's acceptable, which is a support for Rav. To which the Gemara says, Lo b'ktanim u'mishum tsa'ar. No. This Bryce is saying that young colts whose necks are still not super long, that is when you're allowed to tie this traskal to the neck, because so that you can avoid discomfort. But if it was bigger, if the neck was long enough that it can just eat on its own, so then you would not be allowed to tie this traskal. So therefore, it's not a proof for Rav. Dekanami, we can also infer that it's talking about a younger colt colt to avoid discomfort. Dikatani, dumi dikamia, because it's taught in the Brisa together with things like a amulet. And an amulet is something that you would tie to the neck of the animal because it's sick, because it needs some kind of a healing. So hopefully this amulet will heal this animal. Shma mina. So there you go. That this traskal is just for like a really young colt to avoid discomfort, but it wouldn't be a proof for Rav. Let's go weiter. Amar Mar, we said earlier, v'lo b'kmiya afal pishu mumche. We said that an animal is not permitted to go out to Rosh Hashanah with an amulet, even though this is a really starka amulet. This is a really good amulet. It's been proven to work 3 times. Okay? But one second. But we learn on Daf Samach in the parak of Bameh Isha Yotza that a person is allowed to go out, a person is allowed to go out with an amulet as long as it's a mumche, it's an expert, as long as this amulet has been proven to work 3 times. So a person would be allowed to go out with an amulet that has been proven to work 3 times. So why should it be any different by an animal? How come we're saying that an animal is not allowed to go out with an amulet even if it's been proven 3 times? So Gemara says, all right. Okay, so here also when this Brisa is saying that an animal is not allowed to go out with an amulet, it's saying it's not allowed to go out with an amulet that hasn't yet been proven. But va'afal pishu mumche katani. What do you mean? It says that even though it's a mumche, it still can't go out. No, so mumche le'adam ve'no mumche le'behema. That's what it means. It means that an animal is not allowed to go out with an amulet that has not been proven to work 3 times for animals. Meaning, even though it's a mumche, it still can't go out. Meaning, even though it's a mumche for people, for humans, doesn't matter. It can't go out. It can only go out with an amulet that has been proven to work for animals. But the Gemara wants to know, but is that really like a possibility that you can have an amulet that's been proven to work for humans and yet it wouldn't work for animals? If it works for humans, of course it should work for animals, no? The Gemara says, no. In means yes, meaning yes, there is a concept of an amulet that will work for humans but not for animals. How come? Because Adam de Isle Mazala Misayele, Behema de Isle Mazala Lo Misayele. Because humans have Mazala, and Rashi explains Mazala is Malach Shalo Umeil Tzalav. It sounds like every single human has their own angel that sort of takes care of it. And is in charge of it. And therefore, you can write amulets to that angel to sort of manipulate the angel and how it's going to bestow things upon the human. So therefore, you can write an amulet that works for a human, yet it won't necessarily work for an animal that doesn't have these angels that are so invested in its future. And therefore, even though the amulet works for a human, it may not work for an animal. Okay, fine. So we're saying that both humans and animals can go out to Rosh Hashanah with amulets that have been proven to work for their species. If this is the case, then well, right after mentioning this amulet thing, we said, and this is a chumrah by animals, which is not the case by Adam, right? So if you say that it means that an animal is not permitted to go out with an amulet, even if it's been proven, and even though a human is allowed to go out with a proven amulet, well then I understand. This is something that we're more strict upon when it comes to animals than we are by humans. But if we say that both humans and animals can go out with amulets that have been proven, so they're equal. What makes animals any more stringent than humans? So the Gemara answers, Misavar takamiya kai, asandul kai. You're reading it wrong. Do you think that when it says that this is a halacha that's more strict by animals than by humans, it's talking about amulets? No way. Amulets and humans are the same. If it's proven, you can take it out. What it's saying is about the shoe. Humans can go out with shoes. Animals, we said, cannot go out with this shoe because it might fall off, in which case the owner may end up trying to retrieve it and carry that 4 amos from Rosh Hashanah. Tashma, come on here. Sachin u'mefarkesin la'adam vein sachin u'mefarkesin l'beima. Okay, you can anoint oil and you can clean off scabs for a person. Okay, vein sachin u'mefarkesin l'beima, yet you can't apply oil and clean off scabs for an animal. Okay. And my love, di kamaka mishum tsar. And the Gemara wants to say, so this seems to be a brisa, and the Gemara wants to say, and what is this brisa talking about? Can't we assume that it's talking about where there's a wound and the animal is in pain, right? And the animal is in pain, and we want to apply oil in order to relieve the pain, and yet we're saying, Ein sachin u'mfarksin levehema, that you're not allowed to apply this oil to the animal. So what do we see? That even if an animal is in discomfort, you would not be able to alleviate that discomfort. So how come Rav and Shmuel are both saying that you'd be allowed to put this pillow on an animal that is cold in order to alleviate its discomfort, yet we seem to be seeing in a brisa that you would not be allowed to apply oil to an animal that has a wound and is uncomfortable in order to alleviate its pain? So the Gemara says, "Lo, the Gomer Mako Mishum Tainuk." No, what it means is that the wound has already been healed and it's no longer uncomfortable, and you want to apply oil just in order to make this animal feel awesome, give it a little spa treatment. That would not be allowed. And it would be a kasha on Rav, essentially, right? Who says that you would be allowed to tie this traskal to the animal for ta'anug. And this brisa seems to be saying that you wouldn't be able to apply oil to an animal for ta'anug. And Rashi actually mentions that, and he says, Rav Tanu Ufalik. This is a concept that we apply every so often to Rav. I think we only say it in the context of Rav. I don't know, maybe there are other places where we say it for other people, but this is generally something that is specific to Rav. That Rav, because he was such an early Amora, he was a first generation Amora, sometimes you say, you know what, Rav is even allowed to argue on a brisa. So here we have a brisa that says that you wouldn't be able to apply oil to this wound because it's like ta'anug, it's enjoyable. Yet, Rav seems to be saying that you would be allowed to tie this traskal to the animal even though it's ta'anug. What does he do with the brisa? He argues on it, no problem. Pretty cool. Okay, so interestingly now we're actually going to talk a little bit about like applying medicine on Shabbos, okay? I assume that maybe it's because we mentioned like a makkah, a wound, in the previous Gemara, so now we're going to like get into woundy kind of things. Not for too much, but just this next little bit. So, Tashma, come in here. So let's say you have an animal. So it sounds like he got, I don't know, some kind of heart thing. I don't know, something happened to its heart and it's uncomfortable and it's causing a fever. Okay? So basically you have an animal with a fever. Okay? You're not allowed to put that animal in cold water so that the animal can cool off from its fever. A person who has a fever, you would be allowed to put him in water so that he can cool down. Okay? And Ula said, you know why you are not allowed to put an animal in the in water so that it can cool down from its fever? Because we're concerned that you might come to grind up spices. That is the concern whenever it comes to healing on Shabbos. And interestingly, even in a situation like this, meaning you have this animal, the animal has a fever. You're not like giving it medicine or anything, you're just saying like, just put it in some cold water, just put it in some water so it can cool down. No, you can't do that. Can't cool down because you're cooling it down to heal it so that it will feel better. And therefore, if you end up doing something to feel better, well, you might end up then taking some spices, grinding them up as a medicine and giving that to, this animal or maybe to another person or whatever it is, so that they will feel better. So therefore, you can't do anything on Shabbos that can be, construed as doing it with the intention of healing. So Ula says that, that you're not allowed to put this animal in the water so that it can cool down, because that would be done for healing purposes, and we don't do healing things on Shabbos out of the concern of grinding up spices to make medicines. If this is the case, Adam Nami, so then also a person should be unable to go in water to cool down from his fever. How can we say that only animals aren't allowed? So Adam Nira Kemekar, the difference is that by a human being, you'll see Reuven, he's in a pool. I say, okay, Reuven was hot, he jumped in a pool. You're not going to say, Reuven is sick, he jumped in a pool, and therefore I'm going to go grind spices. So therefore, even though he's doing it for healing, sure, but, that might not be the only reason why he might be in the water, and therefore we don't have to assume that people are going to say, oh, well, if you can go into the water, then I can grind up spices. Maybe just go into the water to cool down in general. So why don't we say the same thing about an animal? I'll see an animal chilling in the pool, and I'll be like, oh yeah, the animal's got high, it's just chilling in the pool. Animals don't just chill in the pool. So therefore, if you see this animal chilling in the pool, it's going to be like, oh wow, poor thing, it must be sick. Let me go grind up spices and make medicines. So therefore, since the only reason why this animal would be in water would be to cool down, for healing purposes, you're not allowed to do it. But one second. When it comes to an animal, and as Rashi points out, that there are sort of financial implications. If this animal dies, I lose money, right? So when it comes to animals and what does Rashi say? Why can't I find it? Right? In a place where it involves loss, like this, where if the animal dies, it's going to involve financial loss to you. So do we make these gezeras? Meaning, so we're saying don't put this animal in water because we're concerned that if you put it in water, well then people might go and grind up spices. But one second, but we learn in a brisa. What's this talking about? There's Tchum Shabbos, which has come up a few times, right? On Shabbos, you have to stay within 2,000 amos of your city, okay? So now what if your animal, let's say you have a sheep, and the sheep got away, and it's standing just outside of 2,000 amos from your city. So we say what? Korela, you can call out to it, viba'a, and it'll come back. And we're not concerned, well, if you call out to it to come back, maybe you'll just end up going and taking it yourself and bringing it back, in which case you will have walked outside of the Tchum, right? And yet we don't seem to be concerned about that. So it sounds like in a place where we're concerned about losing your animal, right, where it's outside of the Tchum Shabbos, we say, we're not concerned that you're going to go and get it yourself and you can call it back. So here also we should say that if you have this animal that's sick and it might die, you should be able to put it in water, and we're not concerned about the fact that you might then end up going and grind spices. So Amar Ravina said, Ravina, no, that's not a good proof. Because the tchum that the animal was in is swallowed up and covered up by the tchum that he is in. What does this mean? So think about it like a Venn diagram, right? You have those two circles in the overlapping area. So now this animal, so you have the guy owns the animal. Now there's the animal. Now the animal is with the shepherd, right? The guy hired a shepherd to take care of the animals. So the animal's tchum Shabbos is defined based on the shepherd's Tchum Shabbos. So we're talking about like this Venn diagram. So you have the guy, and he's got his Tchum Shabbos, his 2,000 amos that he's allowed to walk in any direction. Then you have the shepherd, and you've got his Tchum Shabbos that he's allowed to walk 2,000 amos in any direction. And then there's the overlapping area where the two circles overlap. And that is precisely where the sheep is. The sheep is in this overlapping area. So in this case, why is this person allowed to call over to the sheep to come to him? Well, because there's no gezerah to be made. Even in that case, even if you would walk over and grab the sheep, even if you would, even if you would walk over to where the sheep is, he wouldn't be going out of Tchum Shabbos, and that's why it's allowed. The only concern is that, well, now the sheep, right? Because we've been talking about how animals have to rest on Shabbos as well. So the sheep will end up going outside of 2,000 amos, right? So we say that in that case, wow, so that was the neighbor's window. I actually spoke to them yesterday about maybe applying some WD-40 onto that window to quiet it down. I think that maybe they did. Nice guy. Interesting way to meet your neighbors, by asking them to keep it down, but he was a pretty nice guy. Yeah. In any event, maybe now I met a friend. I guess we'll have to find out. First interaction, I guess, wasn't really so amazing. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, but probably not the best way to like make friends and meet neighbors and stuff by asking them to stop being annoying, but maybe that's just like a first interaction. If I didn't ask them to stop being annoying, I probably wouldn't have introduced myself to them at all. So maybe that was just an opportunity to meet them. But then again, probably like making them a cake or something would probably be better. All right, maybe next time. Where were we again? So the animal needs to stay within its own Tchum Shabbos because it has to, rest as well. So the thing is, so we're saying that you're allowed to call over the animal, and he's not, he doesn't have to be too concerned about making sure that the animal kind of doesn't violate his Tchum Shabbos, right? As Rashi says in the Rashi Dibra Maskil Shahaya Tchum Shela Muvla B'Soch Tchum Shelo, it says at the end over there, right? Dilo Huzarhu al Tchum Behemto. He is not responsible for enforcing that his animal, who after all is just an animal, stays within its Tchum Shabbos. However, he shouldn't mamish go and take the animal and pull it to where he is. But as long as he doesn't, mamish pull it and force it out of its Tchum, he can sort of call it over, and if the animal comes to him, that would be acceptable. However, the proof that we're trying to make that where we were assuming that the animal was outside of his Tchum, where he's going to call over the animal, we're not concerned that maybe he'll go outside of his Tchum to get it. It sounds like we would be concerned, and we would make a gzera, even though you might lose that animal, and we would say that you can't, if the animal was outside of your Tchum, you would not be able to call it over because we'd make a gzera that, well, we don't want you to violate the Tchum to go get it, and therefore it makes sense here as well to say that this animal can't go into the water to cool down because we're concerned that you might then go and grind up spices to make medicine. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, said Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Shchikas Samimanin Gufa Tanaihi. Interesting. So apparently this whole concern about, don't do anything related to healing on Shabbos to avoid, people then going and grinding up spices for medicines, that's actually Machlokas Tanaim. Titan, as we learn in a brayso, Behema she'achla karshinin, an animal that ate a little bit too much vetch, and now it has a tummy ache. Lo yiritzena b'chatzer b'shvil shetisrafeh. Do not have this animal run around in your chatzer so that all that vetch that it just ate will kind of get weak in its stomach and it will, release it from its bowels. So don't do that because that will be a healing on Shabbos and Sigzera because of grinding spices. Rabbi Yoshia Matir. However, Rabbi Yoshia says that it would be permitted because he's not concerned about this Gezerah. Darish Rava, halach Rabbi Yoshia, and Rava says that the halach is like Rabbi Yoshia. So does that mean that we're not concerned about the Gezerah of grinding up spices when it comes to healing? I don't know. I always thought we were. Amar Mai, we said earlier, lo yetzi azav b'kis shelo v'lo izin b'kis shebedadein. Oh, so we said earlier that at the bottom of Nugim Amud Alf, we said that a zav does not go out with his baggie, and also the goats do not go out with their baggie, right? That you would tie a baggie to their udders. That you would tie a baggie to their udders, and we're not saying yet how come, okay? But basically, this brayso is saying that a goat should not go out with this baggie. But one second, we have a brayso that says that goats are allowed to go out with this baggie on their udders. So Amrav Yehuda. So Rav Yehuda says lo kasha, no problem. We can resolve these two braysos. Don't worry about it. It depends. If the baggie is tied tightly, well then it's no problem. You don't have to be concerned about it falling off. If it's not tied tightly, well then you have to be concerned about it falling off and carrying it for Amos. Fine. Weiter. Rav Yosef Amar. Now Rav Yosef responds, says, Rabbi Rav Yehuda, Tanoi shakalta me'alma. You have taken away Tanaim from the world. Wow. Very interesting response to Rav Yehuda. You have killed these Tanaim. It's as if they didn't even live. How come? Tanaihi. Because it says Rav Yosef, meaning, and Rashi actually explains it really nicely. Rashi in the Dibur Maskil Tanoi Shakalta Me'alma. Ibadta kulam, you have destroyed all of them. She'ein atamotze tanaim shenechleku b'chach, that you don't find any tanaim that argue about this. The tuki hanach taite masnaisa chade kamar v'chade kamar, that you can, simply just explain that this brisa is according to this Tana and the other brisa is according to the other Tana, which is cool. Meaning Rav Yosef's outlook is that, in a situation like this where you have two brisas, instead of trying to misvara out of your own thoughts to try to say, well, you can just say that this one's in this case and that one in that case, Rav Yosef says, it would be so much better if you can actually find Tanaim and say, look, this brisa is like this Tana and this brisa is like this other Tana. And that's precisely what Rav Yosef does. The Tanan, as we learned in our Mishnah, Ha'izim. Wow. Whoa. I guess the WD-40 really didn't work. Okay. Anyways, tonight, as we learned in our Mishnah, Ha'izim yotzos tzuros, that our Mishnah, which we're assuming is Rabbi Meir, Rashi is assuming is Rabbi Meir, because Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. So goats are allowed to go out with these baggy things. Rabbi Yossi oser b'chulan chutz min archelos ha'kvunos. Rabbi Yossi said that all of these items that we mentioned about animals going out in the Mishnah would not be allowed. The only difference being these rechelos, these female sheep with their kvunos, which we haven't explained yet what they are. But basically, Rabbi Yossi's opinion is that it would not be allowed. You would not be allowed to have these goats go out with this baggie. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, it depends. Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. Izim yotzos tzruros liabesh avalo lechalev. That the goats can go out with these baggies if they are in order to dry out so that they will not produce any more milk, and in that case they are tied tightly and they won't fall off. Avalole chalev, but not if it is to catch the milk. And Rashi here actually explains, because if it catches the milk, then they will be carrying the milk, and that would be a burden. Rashi on the Mishnah, however, said that is because they're not tied as tightly and they might fall off, and then the owner might pick it up. But in any event, Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. If it is to dry out so that the goats will not produce milk, so then it would not be allowed. It would be allowed, and if it was in order to catch the milk, it would not be allowed. So therefore, Rav Yosef is saying that you can explain the difference between these two brisas as the first brisa, where it's saying that it is not allowed, would be Rabbi Yossi, who says it's not allowed. And the second brisa, which says that it is allowed, would be Rabbi Meir, who says it is allowed. Or if you want, I will say, Rabbi Yehuda. You could say that both brisas are actually Rabbi Yehuda. V'lo kasha kan liyabesh kan lichalev. Right? In the first brisa where it's not allowed, it would be because it was the baggie was there to catch the milk. Whereas the second brisa where it says it is allowed, it would be where the baggie was there in order to so that it doesn't produce milk at all. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yehuda Maise beizim beis Antochia. So said Rabbi Yehuda that there was a story with the goats of by Antochia. Interesting. That there were these goats of Antochia that their udders were so big that they would drag on the floor, and they had to make these pouches for the udders so that they wouldn't get scraped on the floor. Interesting. Taner Rabbanan. Oh, and this is even more interesting. Taner Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Maise be'echad, there was a story with a certain individual, Shemesa Ishto, that his wife died, Ve'enicha ben linak, and the wife died and there was an infant who needed to be nursed. Lohayelo schar menika liten, and he didn't have money to pay for a wet nurse to nurse the baby. V'naiselo nez v'niftechu lo dadin kishneda de'isha ve'enek beno. Do you hear that? So a miracle happened, and his nipples, I guess, opened up. I guess whether he grew breasts or whatever it is, this guy managed to be able to nurse his child. Isn't that crazy? Now, Amar Rav Yosef, said Rav Yosef, Bo re'eh kama gadol adam zeh shenais lo nes kazeh. Rav Yosef says, holy smokes, this guy must have been a big tzaddik that God was willing to do such an unbelievable miracle that he doesn't do for anybody else. Okay, this guy must have been a great guy. Amalei Abaye adraba. Abaye says the opposite. Kama garua adam zeh. This guy must have been a real shmendrik. Shenishtinu shidrei olam that God was so determined to not give this guy money to be able to hire a nurse that he'd be willing to change away the way of the world and allow this man to nurse his baby rather than giving him a few dollars to be able to hire somebody to nurse his baby. This guy must have been a real shtunk. Amar Rav Yehuda, said Rav Yehuda bar Re'eh kama kashim zonosav shel adam. Come and see from this story how difficult, how challenging it is for a person to make a living and for God to provide him a living. Shenishtanu olav sidrei bereishis, that it was easier for God to change around the way of the world and allow this man to nurse a baby than to provide him with a little bit of parnasa. Rav Nachman said, Rav Nachman Teda, you should know the misrachesh nisa v'lo ibu mizone, that there are all sorts of miracles that are happening in the world, all the time, right? And even like for tzaddikim, all sorts of miracles happen, and yet God doesn't necessarily create food for them, right? We remember that story with Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, right, in Masechet Brachos, that God said that the whole world only exists, is only sustained because of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, and yet he subsists on one kav worth of carib from week to week. So we see that even though miracles are happening all the time, yet nonetheless when it comes to parnasa, that could be super difficult. Taner Abanan, the rabbis taught Ma'aseh ba'adam echad. There was a story about a certain individual, Shenasa Isha, that he married a woman Gidmis, and she was Gidemis, right? There was a man who married a woman, and this woman was missing a hand. And until the day that she died, he never knew that she only had one hand. Amar Rebbe, Rebbe said, wow, this woman must have been a real modest woman, a real tsanua woman, that even her own husband never saw that she was missing a hand, because she was always just hidden. So tsanua that even her husband wouldn't see that she was missing a hand. Amar lo Rabbi Chia, to which Rabbi Chia said to Rebbe, no, actually, zo darka b'chach, ela kama tsanua adam zeh shelo hikir be'ishto. No, so Rabbi Chia's opinion was that women in general are more tsanua. So I guess theoretically maybe it's possible for a woman to be so tsanua that a unsuspecting man would not know that she's missing a hand. But how crazy it is that this guy was so sort of like tsanua that he didn't even need to know what his wife's hand looks like. Okay? So this guy must have been a real tsanua guy. Very interesting. Zcharim yotzin levuvin. Okay. So the Mishnah said that male rams, well, all rams are male, so rams are allowed to go out levuvin. And we're going to try to figure out now, what does this mean, levuvin? So my levuvin, Amar Rav Huna tosare. So Rav Huna says it means that they would go out in pairs. In order to make sure that they wouldn't, get lost and wander around, they would tie up two rams to each other. My mashma dahai levuvin lishna de karuvehu. What makes you think that levuvin is a means like, close to each other? The Chsiv, as the pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, libavtini achosi chala, you have drawn me close, my sister. Ula amar, or shekoshen len kineged libam, kedei shelo yiplu alein ze'evim. So Ula said that these levuvin means that the rams would go out with hide covering their hearts, so that if a wolf comes and tries to tear out their heart, they will not succeed because there is this hide protecting their heart. But then why is this specifically hide covering? Why is this only for rams? Wouldn't you have to do the same for female sheep? What are wolves only interested in male sheep, not female sheep? So the Gemara answers, Mishum demasgu bereisha idra. Bereish idra. Yeah, but the rams walk at the head of the flock, and that's why they are more vulnerable, and that's why we put this leather on their heart. Was even bereish idra nafle, besofid lo nafle? Yeah, but again, the wolves are only interested in the animals at the front of a flock, not the animals at the end. Like, what makes the female sheep any more secure, any more protected? Ella mishum deshamne, because the rams are fatter, and the wolves want that. Uvinekevos leka shamne. What? But there's no fat in the female sheep. Visu miyade ben anilane. What, do the wolves really know the difference between the male and the female? They don't care. They see food. They're going after food. They don't care if the food is male or female. Ella mishum dezakve chotmayu umasgu kidavu. Rather, the reason why the rams need this extra protection is because they walk with their noses in the air and they're looking around and don't really care. And therefore the wolves see that and they get very offended. And the wolf is like, what? Did he just look at me like that? And then he's going to go, he's going to try to tear his heart out, but he will not succeed because he's wearing a levuvin. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar said, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, or shekoshrin loyen tachas zichruson, kidei shelo yailu al nekevos. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says that it was actually a hide that they would use to cover the penis of the ram so that he will not try to mate with the female sheep. Mimai, how do you know that this is what this levuvin is? Midiktani Sefer, from the fact that the Sefer says, Varechelim yotzos shechuzos. Well, it says that the female sheep are allowed to go out shechuzos. My shechuzos, what does shechuzos mean? So the answer to that is she'ochaz in aliyah shelehen, that was some kind of thing that they would apply to the female sheep to lift up their tails, limayla, kidei sheyalu aleim zcharim, so that the rams will actually mate with them. So therefore, reisha kidei shelo yalu al nekevos v'sefer kidei sheyalu aleim zcharim. So therefore, what it's saying is that if for whatever reason you didn't want the animals to be mating, so then you would be able to put this levuvin on the rams so that they would be unable to mate. And if it was a time when you want the animals to be mating, so then you could put this shchuzos on the female sheep to lift up their tails so that there will be mating. Okay? And this would be allowed on Shabbos to go out with these things. How does it imply that shchuzos is referring to revealing? Right, right. So that the rams would be able to mate with them. The Chassidus pasuk says, "V'nei isha likraso." There's a pasuk in Mishlei. It says that if there's a woman out and about, so shis zona v'netzoras lev, who is revealing as a prostitute and attracting your heart. Zeh, and Rashi says shis zona min notrikon d'shchuzos. Shis is like notrikon, like a brief kind of thing for shchuzos, which is therefore shchuzos means revealed. That was an interesting page. Lots of stuff, right? So let's just do an a review. So we went out talking about donkeys going out with pillows, meaning can you actually take them out to Rosh Hashanah? Shmuel said that the Mishnah said that you're allowed to. So Shmuel says, and when the Mishnah says that you're allowed to, it's as long as you had tied the pillows already before Shabbos. Rav Nachman then brought some proofs from another Mishnah, from a Brisa. Putting a pillow on a donkey. Can you actually put the pillow on the donkey? Both Rav and Shmuel says yes, you may. What about putting a saddle on a donkey? So Rav seems to say that you may. Shmuel seems to say that you may not. What about putting that traskal, that thing so that the animal can always be feeding? So again, Rav says it's permitted. Shmuel says that it is not permitted. We tried to bring that whole long brisa to show that like Rav, that it would be permitted, this traskal, to which we said no, the traskal is only for those young colts because it's uncomfortable for them to eat. At one point we discussed what's the difference between how come you're allowed to put this pillow on the saddle on the donkey, but you're not allowed to put a saddle. You're not allowed to remove a saddle from a donkey. So we say, well, the saddle will fall off on its own. Rav Papa said because you're allowed to put on the pillow because it the donkey is uncomfortable, it's cold, so you're allowed to put on the pillow, whereas removing the saddle, it's just so that it'll cool down faster, but it'll cool down on its own anyways. We talked about amulets, that both animals and humans would be allowed to go out with amulets as long as they have been proven to work in the past. We talked about healing on Shabbos, right? That we don't do things on Shabbos that are healing, because then you might come to grind up spices. Which we said that do not put a fevery, an animal that has a fever in water. So, in order to cool it down, because that would be part of this healing thing. We then said it's actually a machlokas tanaim, whereas the Tanakama says that if this animal ate too much vetch, it shouldn't run around to kind of loosen up the vetch in its stomach, whereas Rabbi Yoshia says it's permitted. And then then we have those interesting stories about that guy who was able to nurse his child. Also, that then there was the interesting thing about this woman who was missing a hand, and somehow her husband was unaware of this. And then we talk about libuvin when it comes to rams. Rav Huna said it's talking about going out in pairs. Ula said it's talking about hide that they would put over the heart, so that the wolves would not be able to tear out the heart. Whereas Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says it was some hide that they would use to cover up the penis of the ram, so that it would be unable to mate with the female rams. Well, hope y'all enjoyed. Have a good day, good night, good everything. Peace.